So welcome to Awake Ones. My name's Lorraine Flaherty.
I'm Sally Pointsett-Nash.
And I'm Alexandra Winman.
And today we have a very special guest who's going to be joining us to talk about complementary medicine.
I'm Francesca Cairns.
Thank you for being with us, Francesca.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolute pleasure. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and what it is that you have in your toolkit in terms of complementary medicine and experience?
Oh my goodness. I started over 33 years ago, and it all started off with, first of all, I was very curious about natural medicine, natural remedies, and so I started off actually with massage, never thinking it was going to be my career. I only went to meet friends and have a massage. That's all it was about. And my tutor said, "You have a real knack for this, you should take the exam." So I did, and passed.
And that was the beginning.
And that was the beginning, actually. I went on from there to study aromatherapy, and that was in part because people used to say to me, "Oh, what do you do?" And I would say, "Oh, I do massage," and they go, "Oh yeah, we know what you do." And I got I used to say to them, "I'm a training astronaut," and they go, "Oh, really?" And from there I went on, I did the aromatherapy, I went on to study sports therapy and sports injury, and then a client that I was treating at the time begged me to teach her massage, and I said, "But I'm not a teacher." He said, "No, I just want you to teach me what you do." So I said, "Okay." And then I thought, I better go and get myself trained as a teacher. So I did that, and I ran adult education classes for 5-6 years in Ealing, and that was great. It was really a great time and very useful. And I got my diploma for teaching. And from there I went on and I went to university and got a master's degree. I didn't stop there. I went on and became an advocate in the NHS for patients. I went on from there to do a certificate in training practice. I got so many, oh yes, I missed out that I studied colour therapy as well. I have ridiculous amount of qualifications on paper, but most of all, I've got a lot of experience, practical hands-on experience, and that is what has helped me to help others.
So how does that translate into what you've done now? Because it's a beautiful cocktail
of homeopathy into the mix.
And homeopathy into the mix. So, because obviously I think all of us along the way have explored various different things, and then you kind of package it together to create your thing. So what would you say is the main area that you kind of focus on, and obviously bring the other bits into, but what's the main focus?
I think for me now it's begun to shift a little bit. My focus has been, I've met so many people at the moment who are going through huge changes in their lives, of feeling unsure, of feeling stressed, quote unquote. Most people use the word without actually knowing what is happening physiologically to them. Stress will excite the adrenals and the liver, and it just generally excites the body mechanism. So with that, there's lots of ways of approaching. Massage is certainly very good, but it doesn't fix everything. Homeopathy is great because homeopathy will work with the individual as physically, spiritually. It will work with the auras, the outer auras, as well as the physical body. It will work with the emotional body. It will work with the mental body. It will work with the spiritual body. And this is the reason I trained in it, because I was looking for something that was truly holistic.
Because you've also done energy healing, haven't you? So
I have, yes.
This kind of bridges everything.
Absolutely, yes. You're talking about the angelic Reiki. And so, yes, absolutely. Energy healing is the medicine of the future to me. Other areas I've become particularly interested in and doing more research in is what's now called functional medicine, to do with the thyroid, because I had a lot of women come to me in their midlife menopausal time, being put on things like being told that their thyroids were either overactive or underactive,
Right.
and being put on lifelong medication. And I thought, actually, no, it's just your hormones are changing because you're at that time of life. What you need is a regime to cut back on your stress, a regime, a nutritional regime to replace what your body is losing as your estrogen and progesterone levels change. So there's lots of things like that. There's a lot of things now that people present with that allopathic medicine, that is the medicine practiced by traditional doctors and consultants, do not have answers for.
Exactly.
So they are looking for alternative ways to heal themselves, which I think is just excellent, because I'm very pro people taking their own health into their own hands.
It's wonderful. And for the people watching, I mean, obviously the key is in the word complementary.
Yes.
But what would you say is the definition of complementary medicine?
Well, when it started off, and I remember when I was training in doing the colour therapy, I was taught by Thea Gimbel, and that was Hygeia Studios, and he's sadly no longer with us. But the conversation at that time in the 80s was around, it used to be called alternative medicine, and it was changed to complementary because alternative made it sound like what was on offer was an alternative to allopathic medicine, which was never what was intended. To this day now, we are still complementary to. So you will see now, for instance, in cancer programs where complementary medicine is running alongside the allopathic treatment. Because when somebody goes through that, it isn't just a body experience, it's affecting the psyche, it's affecting the emotions. It is much more broad spectrum, and so it isn't one size fits all.
And I know for the experiences I have in the medical schools when I'm teaching the clinical hypnosis to the doctors, to these young students, that they're not actually taught about the connection between the mind and the body, which is so extraordinary that they don't put that link together. So I think we do.
But do you know why? I'll tell you why. I have an answer to that, because it's called the Cartesian Split. René Descartes originally was brought up by Jacobeans, and at the time of the Jacobean, it was, the body was viewed as impure and sinful, but the mind was all pure. So it was cut off basically, and the impure part was just put to the side, and only the pure spiritual side was allowed to be discussed. So you have a Cartesian split, which to this day medicine still practices. It doesn't necessarily, it's changing. I have to say that there are so many, I sit on seminars now watching physicians and consultants from all around the world who are now very in tune with the mind-body continuum.
Yeah. Oh, it is changing, slowly but surely.
It's still, there's still some catching up for a few people.
My dad is a consultant physician in Coffs Harbour in Australia, and he's been practicing for many years, probably as long as you, or maybe even a bit longer. And when I first started going into complementary health and energy healing and doing my training, he was quite excited because he hadn't had a child follow him into medicine, but he was quite happy that I'd followed him into healing. And my dad and I had a conversation about it. He ended up coming and doing angelic Reiki with me. But he said at the time, he said, "Tell me about how all this works, Al. Talk to me about all this energy stuff and how does it work?" And I said, "Well, you know how when you go and visit your patients, and if somebody's ill," I said, "do you actually care? Do you, when you're going to see your patients, do you actually go in and care about them getting better?" And he said, "Yes, I absolutely do." He said, I think that bedside manner has a huge impact on how people heal." And I said, "Well, that's exactly that's exactly the principle that I'm working on, Dad. It's that as a human, your level of care is part of that." And I think in modern day medicine, there has been a major disconnect with that, and I'm not to diss the NHS, but it has become a little bit like you're just a box that's ticked. and you've got your 3 minutes and that's it. And I think that is impacting people coming over more and more to complementary medicine, or using complementary medicine to complement, to run alongside modern day medicine. But I think that the fact that you care, and the energy that a person puts into, you know, holding space for a person to heal, it makes an impact.
What's your experience with?
I've had a lot of medical problems over the years. I've had a lot of operations, and you mentioned the thyroid. I only have a third of a thyroid. That's been removed. But for me, it was, I went and had Reiki done without knowing what Reiki was. Someone bought it for me as a gift, and I was at a really hectic point in my life. I was very angry. My life was very aggressive at that stage, and when I went for the Reiki, I couldn't figure it out because I thought it was supposed to be massage. So I'm like, why?
Where are the hands?
The basic version of complementary medicine by Sally. Why is she not touching
When are
me?
you going to start, love?
Yeah. That's exactly what I said. And as she moved over, I had all my toes broken and straightened. And as she moved over my feet, I had this electric surge come up through my body to the point I nearly jumped off the table because I couldn't understand why this was happening and she wasn't touching me. Then she moved over my head and the same thing happened in reverse, and I jumped off the table and said, I'm done. And I went home. The next day, I think it was 8 weeks from that point until I got out of bed again. I had nothing. I was like, energetically, she'd unlocked something, but because I'd left,
Right, in the middle of it.
didn't understand what was happening. I was floored for 8 weeks. I couldn't go to work. It was terrifying. And at that point, it was the beginning of my understanding of complementary and holistic, and working in different ways to traditional medicine. And as I sort of had more operations and things that needed fixing, I realised that it was imbalances within me that needed fixing, and that's how I kind of entered into it, because I'm extremely inquisitive. I won't take someone's word for this is what's wrong with me, I'm going to have another operation. It's extremely stressful on the body to have operations and to recover from anaesthetic. So yeah, being sensitive, it was really my sensitivities to traditional medicine that opened this up for me.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you saying about your dad. So a few years ago, my dad ended up with prostate cancer, and he was always fairly open to complementary medicines and ideas and holistic. His sister, my aunt, is a homeopath and used the batch bark. Whatever you say.
Back.
Flower remedies, anyway.
Edward Bach.
Those things were kind of passed around like Smarties really in our house. If there was ever anything wrong, you went to the homeopath. And so there was a bit of a challenge when he got prostate cancer, because one part of the family was completely holistic. I mean, they would never go and see a doctor or take drugs, the traditional pharmaceutical medicine.
You had a Cartesian split in the family.
We had a big Cartesian split in the family.
Absolutely.
And then even for me, because I would definitely be more down the holistic route and the more complementary route. But when it's somebody that's very important to you, who suddenly is presented with something, sometimes you don't care. You just want to do the thing that's going to make them better, and you don't necessarily want to miss out on anything that is going to make them better. But really in a struggle for me, because I don't believe in bombarding the body with lots of toxic chemicals. So it was a very challenging time. I mean, thankfully with his treatment, there was a bit of a revolutionary treatment where they just injected some radioactive seeds localised to the prostate, which didn't affect anywhere else in the body, and he didn't have to have any chemotherapy or even other radiotherapy. But what did happen was I was going over, I'm trained in Reiki, and I was going over as often as possible to do Reiki on him. Realised I couldn't get there every day, and that it really helped him. And I thought, I know what I'll do. My mum, who's very open to spiritual stuff as well, I booked the two of them on a Reiki course. Because I thought, as long as he understands it, Mum will be able to do it to him, and then maybe he'll do it himself. And so I really sent him just to get it, just to know what it was. Anyway, when they came out, I called them and said, how was it? And my mum said, oh yes, that was lovely, dear, very nice, yeah, very, very nice day. And I said to my dad, how was it? He said, oh, that was amazing, it was absolutely amazing. Oh, and this was happening, and I was getting all these messages, and so the energy was flowing, and I could feel it. And anyway, my dad ended up going on to become a Reiki master. And my mum completely ignored it. And my dad, I know, amazing. And obviously was using the Reiki while he was going through the treatment, and I had all kinds of other healers come in and do work on him. But to this day, you know, my dad is still, he does remote Reiki for people from where he is in Ireland, and anybody that has a trouble, and my mum, God bless her, you know, quite often suffers problems with her neck and her back, and you know, my dad just she goes up, she lies down, and he sends the and she's fine. And there was a woman down in the Irish club that they used to go to who hadn't danced for years because she had such chronic back pain and was in so much pain all the time, and he did about 3 or 4 sessions on her, and the next time we went up down the club, there she was waltzing round and pointing and saying to my dad, it's you that is, it's you that. So
the individual does need to be ready to receive.
Well, yes,
I do need to say that if the individual is not open to receiving, it may take some time for them to open enough to receive that healing
but
energy.
These people were definitely ready, and my dad was definitely ready. So, you know, woohoo, go dad, Reiki master.
Stop to cork with your dad.
I was definitely not ready.
Right. I don't know what this is.
but you came round to it.
Oh, of course, and I've had it since, and
journey,
you know, it's made a massive difference with certain things that I've gone through. But yeah, because it was gifted to me, and I genuinely thought I was going for a massage.
Yeah.
And I had so much that needed to be released.
It shows a couple of things of why, this is a teacher in me coming out, excuse me, why it's so important to say to any client, if you are practicing or you're trained, this is how the session's going to go.
Yeah.
I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. You may experience this or that or the other. What was important with your session and why you ended up in bed really was because it was neither grounded or completed to enable you. So you were, in a sense, you were not in your body when you left the table.
Correct, yeah.
Which meant that, you know, that all the energies are jangled and you're all out there and you don't know what's going on, and it's a very frightening place to be, which is why it's so important to complete your session with a client so that they can re-emerge into the world and function.
Yes.
Yeah.
Francesca, in your opinion, obviously there's so many different varieties of complementary medicine and healing, and it's wonderful because we have such an immense amount of options available to us now. How would you suggest to people that they find the right complementary therapist for them and the right complementary healing for them?
I would say there are a couple of things that I would say. First of all, as an example, I do yoga for myself as a student, but when I first went to try yoga, I neither liked the class or the teacher, and I thought that was yoga.
Right.
And now what I say to clients is, when I recommend yoga, please do not just try one class. Please try different disciplines. There's Hatha yoga, and Iyengar yoga, Ashtanga yoga. There's also there's the hot Bikram yoga. Lots of different kinds of yoga, and your friends will absolutely say it's wonderful, it's glorious, but try it out for yourself. Try different classes, try different teachers to see what you feel in resonance with. And the same applies for complementary medicine or practices of any kind. See what you go and explore something, and you will know instantly whether you resonate with the discipline or the practitioner. The only thing I would say to that is, don't rule off a discipline because you don't like the practitioner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need to identify between the two as to, is it the actual discipline that's being practiced, or is it the individual? I've met many excellent therapists that they're excellent therapists, but they can't teach. I've met many excellent teachers who actually cannot practice the therapy because they're just not made that way to work with people one-on-one in that way. So you need a combination of both, and I'm very, very, very fortunate that I am able, even gifted, to be able to both teach and practice.
It's wonderful. There's we have here in the UK we have the Complementary Medical Association as well, don't we? And there's so much information on that site that you can go to and find, and they'll answer any questions as well. I know that with I've got my system Precious Wisdom that you guys are all familiar with. I actually had it certified by the CMA and went through a bit of the rigorous kind of parameters that they set in state. It's really nice to be able to get that.
That's important because as anybody just walking in off the street want to know that it has been authenticated
And certified,
and it's been certified so that they know that what they're getting has a legitimate, firm basis.
And you can get insurance. That's why I wanted to do it mainly, so that I could have practitioners that would be covered by insurance as well, so they would have their safe container.
Well, that's also another aspect, but it's by getting it approved and certified and authenticated gives it a solid basis.
Yeah.
It gives it a structure. The insurance is another matter completely, but which is necessary if you want to practice. And the certification of the discipline, if you will, in this case, Precious Wisdom, is necessary to get that in order for it to be recognised officially.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing as well, isn't it? When you're choosing a practitioner, unfortunately, with some things out there, it doesn't actually require that much training. So making sure people do have qualifications is one thing, but as you rightly said, it's about finding somebody that really resonates with you and somebody that you feel really comfortable with, whatever you're trying out.
Absolutely. It's not even, I mean, these days, as part of most complementary therapists, in fact, I mean, from my practice in St Albans, a lot of the people around me, nearly every one of us have been, in fact, I think almost every one of us that I know about, have been doing continual professional development. And that means
CPD.
Yes, or CPD, exactly that. But I didn't want to say that because you think, well, what is it? But yes, because you that's how you advance your career. You continue to learn. My personal take is that it's all about the learning. It's you never know you never know it all.
No.
You will never know it all. Everything is a continual learning. And even when I think I've got to a place where I've done this and I've done that and I've got this qualification, that qualification, there's still something else to learn.
Yeah.
Because that's life.
Yeah.
That's life.
It certainly is. So what's your favourite part, would you say, about the work that you do?
The people.
Right.
The people. I once wrote on a piece of literature, I have the great fortune to do a job I love and work with some really, really inspirational people. And I have worked with inspirational people. I've worked with people with cancer. I've worked with people who have gone through multiple operations. And I've seen courage, fortitude, to having a client in my room saying, I've been diagnosed terminally ill with cancer. I don't know how to tell my children. Now that's not my job to tell them, but my job is there to be there too, because I'm not a counsellor, but I can listen. And if I was asked do I know of any counsellors, then if I do have good connections to a counsellor with that kind that specialises in that area, I would by all means give it to them. I've also worked with people who have suffered abuse as children, and I actually said to them, because there was so much in their background, I knew that the massage was going to bring up the memories in their body. So I said, I'm willing to work with you, but please consider getting some counselling alongside, or psychotherapy alongside. Those that did that, we found that the dual approach of the body work and the psychotherapeutics just moved them ahead so much quicker and safely.
Yeah. And that is the point, isn't it? Is that it is complementary.
Yes.
And so it isn't about going for just one route that is going to change things nowadays. And I find it really interesting in Ireland now, you have to pay to go and visit a GP. And
Same in Australia now.
right, and same in Australia. And so it's probably the same amount of money that you would pay to a complementary therapist, and you're going to get at least an hour, if not more, with the complementary therapist, which is going to be a lot more than you're going to get with the doctor. So there's been a surge, I think, of interest in the complementary work in Ireland, and lots of Reiki practitioners kind of popping up. And so it has become a lot more widely accepted and more commonplace out there, I think, more so than it is here, because I do think people still seem to rely on the traditional kind of national health practices and services, which, as we know, when they get 10 minutes per person and not a lot of time to actually really dig into the backstory.
No.
You know, they're just dealing with the symptoms that come up, and we will all know.
And they'll tell you it's not connected. You'll go and see them for something, and you'll say, I'm presenting with symptoms here as well, and another thing, and they'll say, oh no, it's not connected.
That's the Cartesian Split.
Exactly.
It is. It's like, well, the body is a holistic organism. Of course, we know that one thing affects the other.
That's what I love about homeopathy, where we deal with what's called miasms, which are inherited things that, number one, the first thing that you do is take what we call a timeline, the person's entire from baby to whatever they've presented you with now. But then you can also track back to see what's in the family history, what they're coming through, what they have brought through in their DNA, maybe, what they have brought through just historically, that there is a family trait coming through, and you can see that. And with homeopathy, what you do is try and unravel that gradually, bit by bit, taking it all back. And what you ended up doing, because it's all vibration. It's all vibrations, and all you're doing with the remedies and the tinctures is to bring about a place where the body can find its own homeostasis, its own point of healing. You're not doing something to them that hasn't already happened.
No. What I loved about, because I've had a few sessions with you in the homeopathy, obviously, what I love about it too is that even before you get the remedy, you have the whole conversation where you map out your timeline. And I found that so helpful, even from a psychological point of view, because you go back and you can actually see. I know that with me, when I'm okay to share this, that one of the patterns that we revealed that was actually ongoing throughout my life was that I'd been bullied. And I thought I'd only been bullied in childhood at school, but when we sat down and we looked at it, it was like, holy cow, I'm still being bullied as an adult. Like, how have I? And I just completely wasn't looking at it. So when you sit there and go, whoa, I'm still being presented with this, it's just packaged in a different way.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh my God, this is a pattern. So you start to see your patterns, and then you know you can shift them, you can change them.
I'm so glad that you shared that, because I could never have done that without your permission.
No, but I found that it was really important. Because
it's part of the therapeutic. The therapeutic process starts from the minute you step in the room.
Yeah, of course.
Pretty much. Most people don't realise that, and they will go away and think about it afterwards. But that's great. The reflection of what has been discussed, and this is part of getting to know the therapist, and the therapist getting to know the individual.
Yeah.
Because you are entering in. This is two people in this process.
Yeah.
And it's also for the therapist also to do their own work on themselves in order that they remain in a clear space with their clients. And anything that is going on for them, and I always taught this to my students, is whatever is going on for you, leave it outside the door. It has no business in the therapy room. You can pick it up on the way out.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's you're right. It gave you a chance to reflect and see something from a different perspective.
It helped to empower me a lot more, I think, because it also showed me where I was allowing myself to be bullied, and where I was kind of almost setting myself up for it in a way. So I think that anything that is like a reflection, anything that allows you to kind of take a really close look at yourself and And well, this is it's a pattern in me, so therefore it's not just being done to me. There's a reason behind it. I must be inviting it in somehow, and that's
attracting it. Because
attracting it.
It's a patterning or a pattern rather than anything else. It's a pattern that's there that you weren't aware of, but then once you became aware of it, you're actually able to do something about it.
Take control of it or change it.
And this is what I was saying right at the beginning. I like to feel that I might be getting people to encourage them to regain the control of their lives rather than go to somebody else and say, fix me.
Yeah, it's so empowering. Yeah.
And I think we're all about that, aren't we? I mean, everything that we really want to share here in all of these shows is about showing people how they can step back into their own power and step into their own, the control they have over their own lives and not have it taken away from them. And so again, even with the complementary, I'm struck now by the fact that actually, and it's a phrase that I always use, I've just been teaching medical students the hypnosis, that their description of their role in the process is that they are a guide in someone's process.
Yes.
But not at any point as that therapist are they fixing a person or doing it for them. And I think we all walk that path, don't we, of just being alongside and showing the way and giving steps and tools. And it's very much that we are complementary to the person when we're working in this field.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Complementary.
It's not just a complementary therapy, we are actually complementing
Complementing
as we go along,
Yes.
just side by side.
With what Francesca was saying, as well as the healer, leave your stuff at the door. One of the things that I learned with angelic Reiki, and also a huge component of precious wisdom, is that honouring that the higher self, and as you were saying, the higher mind, is already divinely perfect. So the healing work that I do with I do different therapies as well, but the healing work I do with the energy work is literally just to hold the person in their divine perfection, in that unconditional love space. And I'm not projecting anything on them. I don't focus on what's wrong or what's right. I just hold total, almost neutrality of love around that person, so that the body or whatever's going on in the energy field will naturally align to its highest divine component, its highest divine aspect. So it's just like bringing it back. So because I think there's a danger as well if someone's doing something like Reiki, or especially those energy healing practices, where if they're giving you a healing and they're going, oh, you've got a sore leg, you've got a sore leg, you've got a sore leg, it's like project that sore leg onto the person constantly. It's, if you focus on what's wrong, as we know how energy works, it's best to focus on the divine perfection of everything and focus on what's right, and then it allows for healing to speed up.
We do tend to take on labels.
Yeah.
And people do get quite frantic, and I have seen people in my complementary practice saying, I just want to know what it is.
Yeah.
I just want to know what I've got.
Right.
And I'm thinking, and that's going to change things how?
Give you something to grab onto. Give you an excuse.
But I've been there myself in my own history, because it's kind of, when you put a name on it, it kind of, you don't feel like I don't know, it's bizarre. So for some bizarre reason, it was comforting at the time to put a name to whatever the event was that was going on at that time, to call it something that was recognisable. And
because it's like, once you anchor it, maybe our subconscious thinks, once you've got the label, then you can heal it, rather than the healing being the process.
Sorry to interrupt. But that's the whole point. That's what I'm saying about the labels and stuff, because the very thing that you can then do is actually anchor that disorder, disease, whatever you want to call it, issue, into your own body by your focus on it and calling it that name.
Yeah.
And then you can hang all sorts of excuses onto it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Very much so.
And that was one of the issues that I had. I suppose it is sort of an adjunct, but I know that the Alcoholics Anonymous, which does some amazing work and is a great tool, a great resource for people, and I have a great deal of respect for all of it. The only part that I really struggle with, and I really, really have a problem with it, is the fact that people will stand up and say, hello, my name is, and I'm an alcoholic.
And they're reaffirming every time.
Which is just reinforcing that label, that belief, and it's embedding that message into the subconscious. even better would be, you can't even say I used to be an alcoholic, because we know that the brain
We'll still hear that word.
You can still hear the word and you get what you focus on. But my name's Lorraine and I'm
free.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm healthy. To create a label that is actually what you want it to be on the tin. So you're absolutely right with these labels, and of course people then they create an entire identity around the label,
Yes.
and then when
And they get medals for it.
they do, and then when there's an opportunity to heal, oftentimes, especially people that have been caught up with something for a very long time, they don't know who they're going to be without that.
Yes.
So in some ways,
A loss
the
of identity.
comfort of actually being identified with that thing, and either the attention or the support or the camaraderie that comes from being one of those actually means that even when the means to heal is there, people don't want to let go of it.
Although we're not negating Alcoholics Anonymous.
No, that's what I said. I have a
They do
huge
amazing
amount of
work.
respect.
Huge
Just
respect.
change the frame on the words,
Yeah.
and then it would
Yeah.
be absolutely fantastic.
There's something I'd like to just put in as well to this, is not just the labels, but when you get things, and I've seen this personally and I've heard it from other people as well, is where you get a diagnosis that's called indefinitive or undefinitive diagnosis or undifferentiated diagnosis of, which basically means we're not very sure.
Or we don't know what's going on, we're just going to say.
No, we're just calling it, which is nothing, which leaves the patient or the person in a place of, well, where do I go now? Which is really where you go, is into the complementary sector, where people are going to actually be able to help guide you. I can't say that all the answers are going to be there, but at least it takes you on a pathway and a journey towards your own healing.
Absolutely.
And that's really important, because it's a very difficult place to be in, because you know you've got something going on and you don't know what the something going on is. Having somebody hold your hand and gently guide you through that nothingness is very helpful, and it is complementary to whatever is going on. And it's really important, because there are things now happening where there are no
diagnoses.
There's no label for it. There's no label for it. They don't know how to label it, because we're now presenting with things that hitherto were not presented, so they're not currently recognised yet, but they will be.
I've had a few clients like that, where left doctors scratching their heads, and I obviously.
But it's also good, because they will. I've also read articles and papers that people who have been told that they have a form of cancer, and there are lots of different forms of cancer, who have gone away, they've changed their diet, they've changed their lives, they've changed their homes, they've pulled everything out of their home, made it all organic, all natural, changed their diets completely, gone back to the doctors, and they said, we can't understand it, but we can't see any sign of cancer anymore.
Funny that.
Those stories need to be heard.
Yeah, they do.
They need to be heard. And in other places,
and yet by law, we're not allowed to say that we can cure anything.
Oh, absolutely
we're allowed
not.
to say that we can have miracle healings. But
No. You cannot. You absolutely cannot say that. What you can say is that you will assist and may help in terms of a return to a better state of health.
But we are seeing more and more, and I'm not going to say this is because of complementary medicine, but we are seeing more and more. In my everyday reality, I am seeing more and more evidence of unexplained healings, unexplained phenomena of people being healed, of presenting pains and issues, and it's extraordinary.
Well, that takes into, because I was taught and trained that actually before any disorder of any kind presents in the physical body, you are presenting the issues that you went innocently, may I say.
I'm going to have a Reiki massage.
We're going to have a Reiki massage, and then suddenly, boom! But in many ways, your kind of experience is what leads people into this pathway. You'll find most people who are in the kind of genre that I'm in will have come into it via something that's happened in our own personal lives that has led us there.
Yeah.
And I would say it's the same for yourself, and it may be the beginning of a journey of understanding, but it's also a journey that would take you to places that will help you relate to others and others relate to you.
I think kind of growing up, I think there's that Cartesian split with the West Country and with London, because I grew up in the West Country.
Or
I love, I grew up down
It
there.
doesn't cider cure everything.
That's tea.
That's tea. Bristol, so I know where you're coming
Okay,
from.
I'm just outside Taunton.
Okay.
So, you know, I would grow up with, I have a cold, I'm going to take some echinacea, I'm going to take, you know, honey and lemon, or ouch, I've bruised myself, and I would just put the arnica cream on there. I would just, that was normal to me.
Yes.
I don't know what's in a paracetamol, or I don't actually know what's in an aspirin. I'm very conscious of, I like to know what's in it if I'm going to put it into my
The
body.
pain inhibitors.
Yeah, and I grew up, my grandmother was kind of from garden to kitchen, you know, about 95% she was self-sustaining on her land. And moving up to London, it was just more the other things that surround it, like, you know, Reiki, the angelic Reiki, it's just all of this energy work that I've done since. Just had no knowledge of it, but yeah, the kind of, I suppose it is complementary rather than just take a paracetamol or take a painkiller, to use those natural remedies. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and I think it's phenomenal how much you can heal without
In that way.
traditional medicine.
And if you find that you have to take pharmaceutical medications for anything, you, like say antibiotics, stuff like that can unsettle your system. Homeopathy can help with that too.
Absolutely.
But also you can just set the intention, ask your higher self just to send any of the trapped elementals back into the earth, because they can get sort of trapped in the body when they've been manipulated and they're not in the natural form. You can ask for them to be returned.
It's interesting now from a homeopathic viewpoint that my tutor actually comes from Ghana, and was saying that you'll find that the constitution of the people there is stronger than the people here for us, because we are loaded with so much more toxins, environmental or otherwise. There's much, I think, that will come to the forefront eventually about what is happening with our food, and why many of us are being encouraged to eat as naturally as possible. That's not always affordable for everybody, but there are things that you can do. And allotments have become very popular.
Yes, very early.
And it is, prior to Louis Pasteur, it was very much the grandma's kitchen remedies and home remedies, you know, chicken soup for the soul and all that. So in some ways we are going back into history that was there. And you can see it in the remedy books and the old historical documents that actually go back, and it's all based, the interesting part is that actually medical herbalism is based upon the plant and different parts of the plant that are used. The pharmaceutical companies will also use those plants, but they separate off one particular part of the plant. So by separating it off, it is a separation again. They're just taking, well, yes, they're just taking one aspect. So when you just give that one aspect, it's not the whole plant.
And nature's pretty smart. Nature knows what it's doing. That's the thing.
Absolutely. Most of the time, yes, nature's remedies are so I've been told anyway, there is nothing on this earth in terms of disorders or diseases that cannot be cured by what is present on this earth already to heal it. The healing mechanism is already here.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so tragic, isn't it, that so many of the forests, especially the indigenous people that have been working with the natural plants, all the cures for so many of the different ailments that come from there, and we're literally destroying the very thing that can actually make us better and heal us and make us whole.
What I love as well is that usually where you have an issue, the remedy's not that far away. When you look at like the nettle and the dock leaf,
That's right.
it's just you know, it's right next door to each other. It's like we shouldn't have to look that far. We shouldn't have to manipulate things and look that far to find the remedy. So, but hopefully the forests, something will be done there in the not too distant future to stop the rape of the planet, for want of a better word.
Yeah, so different paths to healing, and just thankfully now that so many more things are being validated and recognised.
Yes.
And I think that the frustrations with the traditional are leading people to go off and find other ways to take care of themselves.
Yes, because this is also a change in mindset, because my generation and generations below me have been they're trained the same way. You know, you had a problem, you went to the chemist and you got something for it. Then people migrated to the counters and are experimenting with stuff over the counter to take things to do it, but not really knowing what they're doing, but they will experiment anyway. And the thing is that people are now beginning to gradually take on things for themselves, and that's what the plus is, and hopefully save the forest in the same time.
And more people are learning to become healers and therapists in their own right, even if they don't want to go into it as a career. I always say to my clients, you know, the best way to empower yourself is to learn to do it for yourself. It's, you know, I went into the healing journey for myself, to learn how to heal myself and to learn how to work on my own issues, and then ended up doing it as a career.
A lot of mothers now are doing this with their children, because I've met when I say young people, this makes me sound really ancient. I'm really not that old.
725.
I live for it. Is that they're using more natural remedies with their children, and their children now, I've seen 19 and 20-year-olds with their heads on much more than mine ever was at the same age, and they're using natural stuff, and I just say, go for it.
I think technology plays a massive part in that, because it, you know, it's allowing people.
I'll just Google.
Yeah. Google, social media. It's taking that campfire stories and the village stories out into a kind of global platform. So, you know, there are downsides to the technology, but
this is our campfire.
Yes. But stories were how traditionally these things were taught. And I was saying, although Lorraine, you were talking about the forests and decimation of them, but there are also people within the Amazon forest, for example, who are being trained naturally in all the plant life and the constituents and what it can do and how it can be used for healing.
That's right.
And from that, hopefully that knowledge, we may be able to preserve those plants before they are destroyed, because once they're destroyed, you can't produce it. Rather like going back to the thyroid, there is a natural form of thyroid treatment and a synthetic form of thyroid treatment, and the two are not the same.
Not the same. Well, just speaking of the plants as well, one thing that's been coming up for me recently, I'm about to give a talk in January, I don't know when we're going to put this video out, but about the consciousness of plants, and you can actually meditate on the consciousness of the plant without necessarily having to take the medicine. So say you feel like you're getting a cold, invite the consciousness of echinacea to come into your energy field and to connect with you. I didn't know this was possible, but the plants have kind of been showing me this lately, haven't they? They're having these like...
If you can send healing to a plant, why can a plant
Why
not
can
send
a plant
healing
not
back
send
to you?
It is. It's a beautiful symbiotic, reciprocal relationship.
Absolutely.
And we can connect with them in consciousness. And actually, perhaps this is something that we could all do, is have a word with the plant, with the Amazon, with the rainforests, and offer them support, you know, and let them know that we still need them, not to go anywhere. Maybe that would help. Stay.
Yeah.
We support
We're all connected.
in not creating wooden furniture, wooden floors, wooden things that require trees to be chopped down in order to create them.
Or from sustainable forests.
Sustainable.
Because
To
the
support the
plastics are as much a
sustainability.
problem.
It's the same as and the aromatherapy, I like to use sandalwood, which comes from Mysore in southern India, but that is protected. People say to me, why is it so expensive? And I say, because it's a protected wood, and therefore that means that they're only allowed by law to harvest a certain amount, basically, which I'm all for. And for a couple of years when it was not so freely available, I used another essential oil called hoe wood, which has very similar properties to sandalwood, and I just adapted to use something else so that the natural forestation had time to regenerate.
Yeah. And that's, I think, what we've missed out on. So very important that we take care of ourselves and take care of the planet, and that we find the best ways to do that.
Honour the spirit of the plants, the animals, the planet, and least but not last of all, ourselves.
Indeed.
Yeah, because knowing that it's all part of us.
Yes.
We're all part of it, and what we do comes back to us. Put out love, get love back.
Absolutely.
Compliment the planet.
And compliment all of us. And our greatest compliments to you.
Thank you.
And our great thanks for coming and joining us and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge, and hopefully one day we'll get you back.
I've loved every minute of it. Thank you so much.
So if people wanted to get in touch with you, what would be the
my
best way for them
goodness.
to do that?
That is a little, well, it will be as of 2018. My website currently is being restructured, but from 2018 I will be available on cairnstherapeutics.com. That's therapeutics, THERAPEUTICS.
And can CAIRNS.
IRNS.
And that will be in the comments below.
Yes.
Below, so you don't have to
Why isn't I getting a little split with my name on?
Yeah, we'll put all the details of how you can
Absolutely.
connect with
But
Francesca.
that will be how to contact me in the next year.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for joining us on Awake Ones.
Thank you.